The other day, I saw a piece of fan art I really liked, depicting Nobuo Kujisaki from JJK being possessed by the spirit of the main villain, Sukuna. Obviously, being Jujutsu Kaisen fan art, the comments were all people arguing about power scaling, but the part that I found really interesting was the dialogue. Completely unchanged from the original scene in the manga, where Sukuna, in protagonist Yuji Itadori's body, says, "What a wonderful age it has become. Where are the people, the women?" In addition to one other thing, but we're not going to talk about that.
Rape and pillage of village women and only women and none of you children.
And this initially struck me as unusual, because throughout the series, Nobara herself never expresses any clear interest in any other female character, and as watching Madoka Magica taught me, girls can't love girls. But then I remembered, of course, it's Sukuna saying that, and since Sukuna's the one saying it, it makes perfect sense for the line to be unchanged, right? After all, he was a guy who was clearly into women in his previous life in his own body, so he'd just be a regular straight cisgender guy, whichever body he ended up in, right? Except, it's not actually that simple. In Jujutsu Kaisen, a lot of powerful sorcerers from years in the past are reborn into the bodies of people in the modern age, generally retaining access to the body's memories, but otherwise overwriting their personality completely. But as a result of that, we have a couple of examples of old sorcerers ending up in bodies which don't correlate with their original gender. The first is Kashimo, and the gender of Kashimo's new body is actually left ambiguous. It was originally very lithe and feminine. People generally read it as either a woman or a teenage boy's body, and then in the anime they adjusted it to look more masculine, and we have no information on whether that was a decision made on the part of Shota Goshonazo, the director of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, or if it was mandated by mangaka Gege Akutami. But, very interestingly, in the official Viz translation of the manga, Kashimo is only referred to using they-them pronouns. Granted, this is not by the omniscient narrator, but by Panda, who is particularly woke about this kind of thing.
It's probably due to Kirara's technique.
Kirara? But I thought the other third-year student is a guy.
Yeah, so what?
But it does leave Kashimo's current gender ambiguous. I will go on record saying I don't think Kashimo is supposed to be non-binary. Kashimo was a powerful old wizard from 1,000 years ago, and unless he was the single wokest mass murderer on the planet back then, I have a feeling he didn't know what non-binary was. But it begs the question, what is he now? And the simplest answer is, he's still a guy. We're given no reason to believe that Kashimo has any misgivings about his current gender, regardless of whether he's in a man's or a woman's body. But that means he's trans, right? If he's a man living in a woman's body, but who still sees himself and presents himself as a man, that's a trans guy, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple either, because that brings us to our next character, Uraume. Uraume is another sorcerer from the past, who this time we have explicit confirmation is living in the body of a woman, but they're never referred to using gendered pronouns. And a note from Gege Akutami states that Uraume was born a male, but their contract with Kenchiku included the stipulation that they be incarnated into a woman's body. The way they dress is the same before and after their transformation, but they straight up look like a girl after being reborn into the body they requested. So that means Uraume's trans, right? Either they're non-binary and totally unaffected by whether they're in a man's body or a woman's body, or, more likely, based on what we've been told by Gege, they were a guy who wanted to be a girl and so was reborn as a girl. They literally transitioned and came out the other side in the body of their preferred gender. Except, that means now Uraume is a woman living in the body of a woman. Which means they're not trans. Like, they didn't undergo gender reassignment surgery or anything. They literally have the body of a, biological, assigned female at birth woman. Just covering all my bases there. And so, is it reasonable to say Uraume is trans if, by that same logic, Kashimo's not? Like, they're a guy in the body of a woman now, but they're a guy who was born a guy, who I guess didn't give a fuck about what they were reborn as? Otherwise they would have requested to be born in a man's body the way Uraume requested to be born in a woman's, which would make Kashimo non-binary? Basically, if your definition of transgender is someone whose gender identity doesn't correlate with their birth sex, then Uraume is transgender, but Kashimo isn't. Or Kashimo didn't used to be, but is now? And if your definition of transgender is someone whose gender identity is in conflict with their biological sex, you know, their physical characteristics, then Uraume isn't trans, but used to be, and Kashimo wasn't, but now is. And a lot of people would argue that you can't stop being trans or start being trans. You know, if you're trans, you're always trans. It's not a flexible thing, which would mean Uraume is trans and always will be, but Kashimo isn't and never will, despite the fact that they now have two T's and a V. Was he made trans when he was put into his new body, or is he cis? If he's a guy who, indeed based on his presentation, would prefer to be seen as a guy, isn't he just a regular cisgender guy? I don't really have a clear answer to any of this. I don't think there's supposed to be one. I think it's supposed to be something you think about.
It's not supposed to mean anything. It's like a Zen koan. Just ponder on it.
This is all stuff that's happening by magic, taking place in a magical setting. It's highly unlikely that anything like this will ever happen in our real world. It's not really directly applicable to real life, but I think it's clearly something Gege finds interesting. And I agree, it is interesting. It's fun to think about these magical situations where, you know, a man could end up in a woman's body and how people might react to that. And ultimately, I appreciate Gege for approaching it without turning it into like a freak show or something like a lot of mangaka would. So now I pose the question to you. Is Kashimo trans? Is Uraume trans? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And obviously, you know, then subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, all that stuff. You know, the usual stuff. Oh, and crucially, before I forget, this is not a video about Kurara Hoshi because there's no reason to speculate on Kurara Hoshi's gender. Because whatever makes Hakure's dick hard is a woman. Fat.